The Titanic is disappearing, and no one is watching. The Titanic, that colossal ship etched into history by tragedy, isn't just resting quietly at the ocean floor like a time capsule. What few know, and here's a curious fact that might challenge everything you thought, is that it's slowly being devoured by creatures so tiny we can't even see them. Not the iceberg that doomed it, but marine bacteria and fungi, invisible architects of this silent disappearance. These creatures are corroding the ship, creating mysterious structures, and accelerating its collapse. While technology advances, finding the Titanic becomes harder every day because it's changing, transforming, fading right before our eyes. Will this oceanic icon become nothing more than a shadow of the past? The answer might be more surprising than you imagine. Most people think the Titanic lies at the bottom of the ocean like a time capsule, untouched since the day it sank. But the truth is quite different. An interesting fact that few people know is that the ship is slowly being destroyed right now by creatures so small we can't even see them. These are marine bacteria and fungi that form a kind of biofilm, a living, sticky layer covering the ship's metal. It might seem harmless, but this colony of microorganisms acts like a slow and relentless poison. It's as if the Titanic is being corroded from the inside, non-stop, for more than a century. And here's the curious part. This attack happens quietly. There are no explosions or cracks visible from afar. Instead, trillions of tiny beings work together with frightening efficiency. These bacteria feed on the ship's metal structure. Yes, they literally eat the Titanic. Imagine leaving a car parked for decades in the rain, without any protection. Now multiply that by 100 years and place the car at the bottom of the ocean. That's roughly what's happening to the ship. The most impressive part. Nobody has to do anything. Nature is handling it all on its own. The Titanic is being slowly swallowed by creatures that don't even realize what it means to humanity. This is one of those mysteries that challenge common sense. From the outside, people think the Titanic would be preserved forever like a capsule from the past. But actually it's turning to dust, or rather becoming food for marine life forms. That's quite a curiosity. The ship that once symbolized the peak of human technology is now being destroyed by the simplest life forms on the planet. The bacteria have no idea they are eating away one of the greatest historical facts ever recorded. To them, it's just another pile of iron in the way. But for us, it's an invisible yet deep loss. And the scary part is that this isn't happening evenly. Some parts of the ship are being eaten much faster than others. But that is a story for the next topic. Here's a curiosity that sounds like it came straight out of a science fiction book. The microscopic creatures corroding the Titanic don't just leave holes or ordinary rust behind. They create structures called rusticles. The name comes from combining rust with icicles, and that's exactly what they look like. A kind of rusty tentacle hanging from the ship as if it were melting. But don't be fooled. That's not just dirt. Each rusticle is a living construction, made by entire colonies of bacteria. It's as if the ship had been invaded by tiny architects of the deep sea, shaping the Titanic in their own way. These structures aren't hard like stone, nor solid like metal. In fact, if you touch a rusticle, it crumbles easily like a wet sandcastle. But what's behind this is what really impresses. Inside each of these living icicles is a complete ecosystem. Bacteria that break down iron, fungi that help corrosion, and even microorganisms that feed on the waste generated by the process. It's as if the Titanic has become home to invisible cities that thrive on its own destruction. An interesting fact that most people don't know is that these structures didn't exist before. They were created specifically in this environment. In other words, the shipwreck itself gave rise to a new form of life. The most curious part is that, despite seeming fragile, The rusticless are physical proof of the passage of time and nature's power over something once considered indestructible. They are like visible scars on a body still being consumed. They remind us silently that even the greatest human constructions are subject to natural laws. You could think of rusticless as the termites of the ocean. Small, discreet, but with a huge appetite. And if they have already taken over almost all visible parts of the Titanic, what do you think they are doing to the internal and more fragile sections? The answer, of course, is even more surprising. Here's a detail that few people have thought about, and it's definitely an interesting fact. The Titanic is not decomposing evenly across all its parts. Some areas are being corroded much faster than others. And do you know what's causing this difference? The bacteria themselves. That's right. These microscopic creatures are acting unevenly, attacking certain parts of the ship more intensely, especially the stern. The corrosion is up to 40 years ahead of the rest of the structure. This is as curious as it is frightening. The ship, already in ruins, is literally melting away on one side while the other still holds on a bit longer. It's almost as if these bacteria have preferences, like certain parts of the Titanic are tastier for them. Of course, the scientific explanation relates to the metal composition, water circulation, and oxygen levels in each spot. But looking at it more humanly, it's hard not to see a metaphor. The Titanic is being devoured from within, but not exactly fairly. Some parts simply had no chance. And this makes everything even more mysterious. After all, we're talking about a ship that went through one of the most significant events in human history. And now it lives through another process, less visible but equally symbolic. This uneven rate of destruction is also a warning. Time to study, explore, or even preserve the Titanic is running out. While some parts still show visible details, others have already turned to underwater dust. And this happens day after day without pause or warning. Every lost piece is a piece of history that will never be recovered. It's a silent race against time, and against creatures that don't even know what they're doing. It's curious, but the decisions humans made over 100 years ago in designing the ship still impact how it's being destroyed now. And if you think this invisible destruction is already surprising, wait until you hear how hard it's become today just to find the Titanic itself. Even with all today's technology, digital maps, high-precision sonar, underwater robots, finding the Titanic on the ocean floor remains a huge challenge. And here's another interesting fact. The ship isn't just hidden. It's constantly changing. The action of these microscopic creatures, along with natural ocean forces, is constantly modifying the Titanic's appearance. Structures that once served as visual references, like railings, parts of the deck, or metal walls, are collapsing or disappearing. It's as if the scene is being redrawn every day. A mystery in motion, slipping even from the best sensors. Imagine trying to find a city in the desert that shifts location with every sandstorm. That's how it feels for those trying to locate the Titanic today. The ocean floor where it rests isn't static. There are currents, changes in terrain, and sediment buildup. Now, with rusticless growing and breaking down, everything becomes even more confusing. With every dive, what was once familiar no longer is. Even larger pieces, like propellers and beams, are starting to disintegrate or bury themselves. It's curious and frustrating at the same time. The more technology we have, the less time we have to see the ship as it was, or is. And here lies one of the biggest mysteries of this process. Will the Titanic simply disappear from the map someday? Experts admit that if the current pace continues, entire parts of the ship could vanish in the coming decades, maybe even faster. And it's not just the bacteria at work. Mud, sediments, and the pressure of the sea help hide what remains. Each exploration dive is now almost a rescue mission for memory. It's not just a search for wreckage. It's a desperate attempt to document what still exists. Because, as we'll see in the next point, if nothing is done, the Titanic might become just a rumor in the depths. What's happening to the Titanic isn't just a matter of time, but of silence. A kind of natural forgetting that comes from below. If nothing is done, these microscopic creatures will continue their work. And the most famous ship in history could end up completely swallowed by the ocean. And we're not just talking about rust. The process is more complex. Bacteria corrode the structure, ocean currents spread the pieces, and mud slowly covers everything. It's as if the sea itself is helping erase this memory. A historical fact, full of mysteries and curiosities, about to disappear forever. The ocean floor isn't a fixed place. Currents move, sediments accumulate, and the terrain changes over the years. Now imagine this happening on a fragile structure, with thousands of bacterial colonies speeding up its destruction. The broken parts are carried away by the water and covered by sand and mud. The heavier structures sink even deeper, and what remains ends up disappearing into the darkness. What was once an imposing ship, a symbol of one of humanity's greatest disasters, risks becoming just a shadow underwater. A disappearance as slow as it is certain. And the most curious part, most people don't even know this is happening now. Sad and, at the same time, fascinating. Nature is doing its part. Nothing stays intact forever. And in the case of the Titanic, the end might not be an explosion or a great catastrophe, but simple forgetting. Without fuss. Without goodbye. Just the silence of the ocean covering everything. And this raises a question few ask. What else has already disappeared under the waters without us noticing? How many other historical facts, ships, cities, or mysteries have already been swallowed by mud and marine biology, far from our eyes? The Titanic might be just one more. Or it might be the beginning of a new way to see time, memory, and the fragility of what we call eternal. What do you think will happen when the Titanic completely disappears beneath the ocean? Are these invisible creatures just getting started? And are there other mysteries in the deep sea at risk too? It's curious to realize how such grand historical events can be erased by something so small, yet so powerful. Have you ever wondered how many other stories might be lost without us even noticing? If you want to keep uncovering these hidden mysteries and fascinating curiosities, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you'll stay ahead with discoveries that science and the ocean reveal, before they vanish as well. Now tell me, which part of the Titanic story surprised you the most? Or do you know any other curious facts about shipwrecks or ocean mysteries? I'd love to hear from you in the comments.